Everyone would grab a place. But then someone snitched on them, and the cops came and busted them and took them to jail. And what happened then was they found out that they were just sannyasis, they were innocent, they were just Hare Krishnas. So they let them go. And then the 4 sannyasis decided, let's split up, we'll each go to one area and do some preaching. So they were already in Florida, so Gargamuni said, well, I'll just stay here in Florida. He went up to Gainesville. Vishnujan went to Texas. Where did Brahmananda go? Tallahassee. Yeah, he went to Tallahassee, you went to Gainesville. And Subal, where did he go? Yeah, nobody knows where he went. But he ended up in India. So then what happened was Gargamuni made an outstanding devotee, Pushta Krishna, who was a very intelligent university student, and Gargamuni preached to him, and then Brahmananda, he was preaching and doing programs up in Tallahassee. And then Prabhupada requested that someone had said to him, why no one's doing any preaching programs in Pakistan when he was in Bombay. So he requested Brahmananda. Yeah, why are you only preaching in India? Why don't you go to Pakistan? We know these things. The Indians are saying that. Well, we know Krishna. They would always say that. So then what happened was that Brahmananda went to West Pakistan and Gargamuni went to East Pakistan, which very soon after he arrived there was the War of Independence when it became Bangladesh. So he came back over the border. He crossed at Haridaspur to Calcutta, then flew to Bombay. But Brahmananda hadn't arrived yet, and no one had word from Brahmananda, and he was in Pakistan. Everyone was really worried. Prabhupada was terrified. He was... in Lahore? Karachi, in Karachi, right, in Karachi. Right. Then finally Brahmananda arrived in India and Prabhupada was so happy to see him. He went up and embraced him like a long lost son. And, so... So,
on that day, we arrived on Ram Navami from Karachi. There was only one airline that was scheduled to fly to Bombay from Karachi, and that was Swiss Air. And that's how we got there. I flew from Dhaka to Karachi. We had to go around India. We couldn't go over India because we get shot down by India. So Brahmananda went to the Hindus in Karachi. I went to the students because I thought they'd be like in Dhaka. The students loved us there, the Muslim students, but not in Karachi.
Okay, I'm just going to say one last point. That so Gargamuni and Brahmananda later on, they were traveling all over America and going to every home distributing Prabhupada's books, the full sets of the books from the archives. I was also doing that, and I was also traveling with with Festival of India doing kirtans. So I bumped into Brahmananda one time, and he told me this Leela. This is my last Leela. He said that when they arrived in Las Vegas, they got a hotel, and when they went to their room, there was a chip that you could use in the casino. So, in every hotel room, they left a chip for people to go and put it into the casino, so, to try their luck, and in this way get addicted to gambling. So Brahmananda, as soon as he said that, he said, "Oh, this is Maya." He was going to throw it out, and Gargamuni said, "Well, wait, hold on a second." And he took it. He went into the casino. He went to every slot machine, and he was looking at the serial numbers. And when he found a serial number that had 108 in it, he put the coin in, pulled the lever, and he got the jackpot.
Dollars. $2,500.
$2,500. So Brahmananda said, only Gargamuni could do that, nobody else. Hare Krishna.
Little piece that not many people know, but while Brahmananda was preaching in Pakistan to the Hindus, there was one young man who was studying to be a doctor. And he was there, and he was born in a Brahmin family. And he thought, these people are doing what I should be doing. What am I doing? Studying to be a doctor, and these people are speaking about Bhagavad Gita. So that person became a devotee. That was Sarvabhauma, who preaches all over the world.
Hare Krishna. So this was when Brahmananda was still in New York. He was at near where? Here? Okay. He was at 61 2nd Avenue, the president still. And I was a brand new devotee. Subal drove me up there to see what ISKCON was, because we only had 4 devotees in Philadelphia, and I saw the big temple, 61 2nd Avenue, that Gargamuni had gotten the tuxedo shop downstairs, that he turned into the spiritual sky shop. And I got to see the deities for the first time, Radha Krishna and Gauri and Brahmananda. So that was a big experience for me. And a week later, we were down in Philadelphia again. Subal gets a phone call from Los Angeles, from Prabhupada, that he wanted him to come and take sannyas. And it was Brahmananda, Vishnu John, and Gargamuni. They were all going to take sannyas together. So right after they took sannyas, they came right back to the East Coast to Philadelphia, and they were staying with us there. And we would go out every day on Sankirtan, Broad and Chestnut, all 6 of us. And then it was time for Janmashtami. So we all got into the van together, the 4 sannyasis and the 3 of us, because temple president had to stay back and take care of the temple. So we were all in the back, and we got to New Vrindavan. Oh, while they were there, I wrote my letter to Prabhupada asking for initiation. And what I wrote in the letter was that, thank you very much for sending these 4 sannyasis all over preaching. They're doing such a nice job, and I gave their names and everything. And I sent the letter to Japan, right? And then immediately Prabhupada wrote back and initiated me, and I ran and showed the sannyasis the letter. So we got to New Vrindavan. I was just initiated like 2 days before that. And of course, Abhiram, you were temple president then, right? What were you? Oh, you were from Detroit. Okay. So the men might have heard exactly what was being said, because they heard, but the hundreds of devotees came. Maybe there were I don't know if 1,000 devotees exist, but whoever was in America came to New Vrindavan. And we were all told that Prabhupada was coming. But Prabhupada, because he was hurt, he left and went to Japan to
by phone that you don't have to come.
Oh, how terrible.
Yeah.
Is that what it was?
That's why Prabhupada left.
Oh, how terrible.
Yeah. That was the minimization
Wow.
of Prabhupada. Because Prabhupada wanted to have a big mela there. And
Everyone came because we all thought Prabhupada was going to be there.
Right. But Kirtananda called said, you don't have to come.
Oh, Krishna.
And Prabhupada was planning to go 3 months before. He wanted a great mela there to invite all the dignitaries from the local government to be there. And then they canceled. And that was a big thing for Prabhupada. So that was one of the minimization.
When we all reached New Vrindavan, they put the sannyasis, it was like a teepee or something, a tent you were staying in, and you were all staying together in that tent, right? You remember that? And they were all like huddling together, and we were all waiting for the festival to start. And then the sannyasis came out and started their lectures. And what we all heard, the little people, was because of your offenses, Prabhupada hasn't come, right? Remember saying that stuff? And it was being blamed on the devotees why Prabhupada hadn't come. And the devotees started, they reacted by, they were just running into the forests and leaving, and nobody knew how to handle it because they felt that they were being blamed that the Supreme Personality of Servant or Godhead didn't come because we had all committed some offenses. So, because I was a brand new devotee, I couldn't understand any of it, so I went to the kitchen and helped Palika cut all the potatoes, So I didn't get to hear. After that, and I saw the devotees start disappearing into the woods because they were just trying to get out of there. They didn't know what was going to happen. So that was as much as we understood that the devotees were being blamed for Prabhupada not coming, and Prabhupada being the Supreme Lord, it means that we were all great offenders, and we weren't even worth being devotees, and this is the way that the common devotees were taking it. And then they had one night a wonderful movie show, the video show. That was like the highlight of the whole festival, where they showed these fantastic movies of Prabhupada at the Rath Yatras and maybe even at India. No, he wasn't in India yet at that time. So it was all the early movies that Gargamuni had taken. So we got to see all those. So just like with anything, each person had their different conception of what happened in New Vrindavan. But for the new devotees, and everybody wasn't more than a year or two old, it was 1970, we felt that we had committed some terrible offenses, and therefore Prabhupada left us, and therefore it was all our fault that he had left. We didn't know that Kirtananda said that Prabhupada didn't have to come. And
he wasn't feeling good. And so that's why Kirtananda calls. So you don't have to come because you were ill. He wrote in many letters that I'm not feeling well. That was in July. And that in August he left for India.
give this to Dina Bundy.
About. Well, we've been hearing in the 60s, the late 60s up to 1970. So anything I have to say, of course, will be after 1971. So I was in New Vrindavan in 1972 when Prabhupada came back for the first time. And that was a very big, wonderful festival. And I think by that time, in the 2 years it lapsed, everyone understood the difference between servitor God and God and Prabhupada's position, and he gave very nice lectures. With Brahmananda Prabhu, see, I joined Prabhupada September 1972. So I went from just a young boy in New Vrindavan and working with other people with the cows and farming, to I was thrown into Prabhupada's circle, his entourage of people. So I went from really not knowing anyone other than Kirtanananda to suddenly I was involved with all the big devotees in ISKCON and Prabhupada's secretaries and GBCs and sannyasis. I was just thinking about Brahmananda, how he was very natural with Srila Prabhupada. From the beginning, he was literally, you were his sons. And even just hearing now everything, you know, to me, Brahmananda, he was Prabhupada's secretary. He was his secretary, and I was his servant. We spent over a year together in different places, right here in Vrindavan, in Mayapur, so much time, and other places. And I guess that's what I said once when Brahmananda literally said to people, it's Shruta Kirti, he's Prabhupada's servant. In other words, you just deal with him. You just have to deal with that boy. You know, he's Prabhupada's servant. And we got along like that. We got along very well. We each knew our service. And Brahmananda, he was the one secretary. He was as much a bodyguard as he was Prabhupada's secretary, which I never saw that with any of the other secretaries, where they had this personal relationship to protect Prabhupada bodily in every single way. It was more than one time I saw him use his danda, you know, to hit those hands who were trying to touch Prabhupada's feet. So he would always with his danda. What Mahadevi was speaking about, one of our, in being with Brahmananda, when Prabhupada was in Delhi, and I was 74, the end of 74, early 75, when he went to Kurukshetra. I believe it was the first time. And we've all heard the 75, yes. We heard what Prabhupada did. Brahmananda, he told that story very nicely, how the different people got up there to speak, all different Mayavadis, and Prabhupada, as I said, he sat very uncomfortably. Prabhupada was always comfortable, but I saw him a few times become uncomfortable. This was one of those times. And he was sitting in a chair just like this with some of his disciples, Brahmananda, myself, and as each one would speak, Prabhupada's leg just became faster and faster. He just couldn't tolerate listening to what they were saying, all their nonsense philosophy. As he said when he finally got up, they're speaking from Bhagavad Gita. No one even mentions Krishna. Prabhupada said he blasted them. It was very short, maybe 5 minutes or so. And of course he quoted Bhagavad Gita over and over, Aham Savasya Prabhavo, and on with fire. And we were sitting there, myself and Brahmananda. Before it happened, we arrived. It was very hot. It was this time of year probably. It was quite hot in Kurukshetra. And Prabhupada got into his room, and Brahmananda and I, we had an adjoining room. And we had seen what looked like a stream, a creek. It was an irrigation canal, and it was all very modern at the time, all concrete, V-shaped, and the water was rushing through it. Well, we both became very attracted to take a dip. So after Prabhupada had breakfast, we took a walk to one part where this canal was flowing. The water was flowing very rapidly, and neither one of us, for whatever reason, didn't think it out very nicely. So we both jumped in. And as soon as we got in, we couldn't stay in the spot we were in. The water was so tight and rushing so fast, it just started pushing us. And we didn't know where it was pushing us. It was literally pushing us to these concrete blocks that were in 3 rows to break up the water, to slow it down. And we were headed right toward these concrete blocks. Anyway, somehow we both managed to grab hold of, there were these little, for some reason, this little wire coming down. Brahmananda grabbed one, and I was a few feet away, and I grabbed another one, and we're literally holding on for our lives. And I managed to pull myself up on this metal wire, being a little smaller and lighter. And I pulled myself out, so of course I walked right to your brother, and he's holding on with both hands. And you could see he's looking at me, and he said, "Pull me out." And I looked at him, and I thought, this is not possible, I can pull you out. I didn't say anything, but I'm like, and he's just holding on. So I didn't know what to do, but fortunately Krishna inspired me. I walked, it was about 10, 15 feet, and he's yelling my name. And I saw right before this water went over like a little waterfall with these concrete stoppers. Right before it, there was a little stairs, just 4 concrete stairs coming up. So I stood there and I said, "Brahmananda," I said, "let go." I said, "I'll catch you here." Of course, like I say, bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush. So he didn't want to let go because he didn't trust the future. But after a few seconds, it seemed forever, he realized I wasn't going to pull him out, and he couldn't hold on forever. And that was the image I always have of your brother. Of all the different images, I have this one image of him with his arms out, just looking at me, just as if coming down, coming right towards me. And miraculously, he came there. I grabbed him by the arm and pulled him up the stairs. It was very frightening. And then we started walking back to Prabhupada's room. And we're right next to the canal walking along. There were people. No one did anything. And as we're walking and Brahmananda looked at me, he said, "I didn't think of Krishna once." And I looked at him, I said, "I'm still not thinking about Krishna." So he was ahead of me. He was thinking of Krishna much quicker than me. But that was one thing we shared together. We had nice times together. We both had jaundice at different times and malaria at different times. You never got it at the same time when you were with Prabhupada. There's always one person that was healthy, that would take care of everyone. So when I had my malaria, Prabhupada was sitting right here at that time, 74, and we were all in there, and I was lying on the floor, and they were all taking prasadam very happily. Prasadam, that was literally our life. Prabhupada's association and prasadam sustained us, those 2 things, particularly in India. And Prabhupada, he was so wonderful with Brahmananda. One time Prabhupada walked through the room, and your brother, he was eating a big mound, boiled vegetables, because he had jaundice. So when we had jaundice, no ghee, no spices, sugarcane juice, boiled vegetables. That's all you could get. So 3 or 4 of us are sitting there, and Brahmananda's there, and he's eating from this mountain. And Prabhupada had to walk through the room. It was a one life member guest place we were staying at, I think in Ahmedabad or somewhere. And Prabhupada looked. He saw Brahmananda. He looked at him. He said, "Are you going to eat all of that?" Brahmananda, "Yes, Prabhupada." "Okay," he said, "as long as you eat everything on your plate." He said, "Take as much as you want, but make sure you eat what's ever on your plate." And we would just continue eating. He was Prabhupada. But he had a way, everything. He made you very comfortable. So I remember that, all this about Brahmananda. He was very comfortable to be with Prabhupada. It's nothing he wanted more. He would do whatever he said. Go to Pakistan, go to South Africa, go here, go there. But when the opportunity was there to be with Prabhupada, there was nothing better. I mentioned the other day how at that time, after being here for almost 6 months, we all wanted to leave India. You know, it was August, September, October, November, December. And we were struggling, myself and my Brahmananda Paramahamsa was there. And Prabhupada sent myself and Brahmananda to Hawaii. We wanted to go until we got on the airplane. And then we realized we left. And again, Brahmananda looked at me. He said, "What are we doing? We just left Prabhupada." So this was how it was. To be with Prabhupada was the most difficult service, but there was no better service. There was nothing you wanted to do more, despite anything else going on. You would just have to cling. Brahmananda was very good holding on, except there in Kur, etc. And then we walked back into the room. We were shaking, you know. We walked in and offered our obeisances, and Prabhupada just looked. "Everything okay?" "Yes, Prabhupada, everything is okay." Never mentioned what had happened. Yes.
Because we used to cook the boiled sabji for Brahmananda. After we'd cook for Prabhupada, right in the kitchen was in Prabhupada's bedroom at that time. And it was just Pishima and myself as our helper. So as soon as Prabhupada finished, his cooking was finished and the plate was taken in by Shruti Kirti, we'd start cutting up the vegetables for Brahmananda, make a big pot of boiled sabji for him. And then somebody would come and bring it. He stayed right in this room here. He and Bhagavan were in that room at the time. So he didn't finish it all that day. And the servant brought the plate out, and while we were in the kitchen still cleaning and all this stuff, he put the plate with the unfinished boiled sabji outside of the kitchen. And Prabhupada came out to go to the bathroom. The bathroom was also right there in the closet. And he's looking at the plate, and he calls me and he said, "What is this?" I said, "Oh, that's a mistake, Prabhupada. The servant put it there. He should have distributed the, remnants, but he brought the remnants back here. I'll take it away." So then Prabhupada, he was very disturbed by this, but he went into his bathroom, and then I took the plate, ran around through this door to here to show Brahmananda that Prabhupada was, he was angry that the prasadam wasn't finished and it was brought back to the kitchen. So I didn't know, but Prabhupada came this way, and I came that way, and we reached the room at the same time. I had the plate in my hand, and Prabhupada standing there at the door, and he said to Brahmananda, he said, "Whatever you put on the plate, you must finish it." He said, "Before you start, you can take it off, but whatever's on your plate, you have to finish it." And then Brahmananda, he said, "But Prabhupada, I had burped." And that was why I stopped eating. And Prabhupada didn't take it. He said, "No, anything that's on your plate, you have to finish that prasadam." And then he left. Just like a father correcting his son.
Burp, yeah, that's, of course, we understand Ayurveda. When you belch, you burp, then you're finished. But no, Prabhupada was very, very strict in all the Brahminical habits. One of the first things I learned as a servant, when I took his plate off and didn't come back immediately with a cloth to wipe that spot. So that was my very first, Prabhupada wants to see you. He always knew it was to be chastised. Never, not that he was going to see you and say, you're very good, you've chanted your rounds very nice. No, Prabhupada wants to see you means something's going to happen. So. But Brahmananda, he was very protective of Prabhupada. A few times I saw errant disciples, people that had left, that came before Prabhupada, and if they weren't showing proper respect, Brahmananda would wait for Prabhupada. I said, Prabhupada in Mayapur called Brahmananda in, you don't move a pin from here to here without asking me. So that's what it was like when you were with Prabhupada. You didn't have the ability, I think I'll do this today. I think I won't go on the morning walk today. No, there was no choices. It was Prabhupada's choices. And that's what we did, but we were, of course, very happy to have that association all the time. I later saw Brahmananda in the 90s. I guess it was in the mid-90s where I was living outside Philadelphia. At that time, he was distributing the Conversations books. I was about 15 or so of those. So he stayed with us as he was going to 32 volumes. Of course, we bought a set. He stayed with us, then we bought a set and took care. He was on the phone, long-distance phone calls at that time, which very... We were watching our phone bill, I remember. Then he wrestled both my sons. One was 16, one was 17. They were both on the high school wrestling team. But he made short work of both of them. He was also a wrestler. Captain of the wrestling team. A wrestling scholarship. Yeah. Brought it? You go, Dino.
I never had much association with Brahmananda because I was always in some outpost. We joined in Boulder, and then we came to LA for a while to go off to open a temple in Dallas. And then we were off in Portland, they were down in South America. But I heard one story that I've never heard for a long time. That was from some of the East Coast devotees told me this story. That one time Prabhupada went to Boston. And there was some young boy who was coming to the temple, and he was telling all the devotees, you have to get into yoga, it's very good for the health, it'll help you so much, and this and that. And Prabhupada came to Boston, so he went on a morning walk, and this boy was there just like a little mosquito. Prabhupada wasn't paying any attention to him. But he coming, you have to teach them some yoga asanas, and Prabhupada just like a little mosquito, And finally, he just wouldn't stop. He didn't take the hint. So finally, Prabhupada stopped, put his cane in the ground like that, and he looked at Brahmananda and he said, you see this boy? You see this boy? If I tell him, he will kill you. If I tell him, he would. Brahmananda probably wouldn't, because Brahmananda was ready to do anything, Prabhupada said, And he just looked at Brahmananda, because Brahmananda was big. Not only was he big, but he was tall, He just looked at Brahmananda. So I tell him, he will kill you. Then what will your yoga do?
Sugar.
Huh?
That was about eating sugar and white rice.
All right, I don't know.
And using maida and making puris. So Prabhupada said that
Anyway, that's the way they told the story to me. But that was years and years ago when I was a young devotee.
I have three more memories if we have time. So in 1975, before I came to India, I was living in LA, and one of my services was to get the Mahaprasadam from the deities and bring it out and serve it to the devotees. It was a real nice service. So Brahmananda arrived, and so the temple president, he said, when the offering comes off, bring Mahaprasad for Brahmananda. So offering came off, I transferred everything, washed the plates, and brought a nice plate for Brahmananda. I walked into the office to give it to him. Brahmananda looked at me and said, "What is this?" And I was completely bewildered. And the temple president, actually it was Jayatirtha, he said, "Bring the whole offering." I had not brought the whole offering, I had only brought partial. I had him run back and get the whole offering and bring it in to Brahmananda. So he was satisfied. That was my experience there. Second experience I had with him was, he was telling me that when he went to Nigeria to preach, so Prabhupada had sent him there, and before he had gone, some other devotees had been there, like Giriraj and a few others. But then Brahmananda became the most prominent preacher. So he started meeting people, and they would give him a sweet, and then they would say, "Haribol." And he would say, "Oh, Haribol." And every time he would meet some nice person, they'd give a sweet and say, "Haribol." And he'd go, "Haribol." And he was thinking, wow, Giriraj has done some amazing preaching. Everyone's saying Haribol. But then he found out there's a company called Haribo. And they have this sweet. And it's like the best sweet. So when you give that sweet and you tell them it's a Haribo sweet. So he told me that story. That was very funny. And what was that third one? I had a third one. I'm trying to remember all these things. At my age, trying to keep these things in your mind. What was the third one? Oh, well, I lost it.
We have a few written glorifications that different devotees have said. One is from our dear temple president's wife, Gaur Purnima. She sent from Florida, where our Panchagoda Prabhu is visiting right now. His Grace Brahmananda Prabhu Ki Jai. Please accept my obeisances. All glories to His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. On this auspicious day of your disappearance, I extend to you my gratitude. I have always remembered your kind and gentlemanly nature. The first time I met you was in 1981 or 1982 in New Raman Reti, and I cooked for you. New Raman Reti is Alachua. You made sure that I was told that you enjoyed the eggplant balaram I had prepared. Your kindness made a lasting impression. I hang on to the moments of association I have been fortunate to have with Vaishnavas like yourself, who gave me an opportunity to glimpse the qualities of Srila Prabhupada. With gratitude, your servant, Gaur Purnima Devi Dasi. That was something very wonderful about Brahmananda's association. He immediately made you think of Srila Prabhupada. Whenever he spoke, you instantly felt that Prabhupada's presence was there. We used to book these engagements for Brahmananda Prabhu in the Balaram Hall, and the Balaram Hall was packed, and even people standing outside the windows, and you could hear a pin drop. One time there, Brahmananda told the story, tears in his eyes, of how he and Gargamuni had to make a choice. Prabhupada used to call Gargamuni and Brahmananda's father Mr. Hiranyakashipu. He was a very heavy individual, and Gargamuni and Brahmananda grew up under his stiff hand. So they had met the Swamiji, And at that time, the father was actually making the will. And there came a time when he approached Brahmananda and Gargamuni and said, you have to make a choice, the Swamiji or me. Brahmananda said right away, the Swamiji. And Gargamuni was thinking, well, they could get all that money from the will and give it to Prabhupada. But right then and there, their father disowned them. They weren't allowed to go back home. They were homeless. They had no place to go. So they went back to 26 2nd Avenue and they told Swamiji, oh, we wanted to give you all this money in the will, and now our father has completely disowned us. And at that time, they came from a very wealthy family, and both Brahmananda and Gargamuni were sleeping on the floor. So from a very, very wealthy family in New York, 32-room mansion, they were driven to school by chauffeurs. They gave all of that up, the money, everything, to sleep on the floor at Prabhupada's lotus feet. So when they told Prabhupada that, Prabhupada took Brahmananda would have tears in his eyes when he would tell this story. And Prabhupada took both of them in his arms. And he said, that is okay. I will be your father and I will be your spiritual master. And you can see in the years that went by, Prabhupada really was like a father to all of his disciples, and especially Brahmananda and Gargamuni really had that relationship with Prabhupada like a father. I'll just tell one funny story as I find this next offering. As the last 5 years that Brahmananda was with us here in Vrindavan, he gave me the service of being like his caregiver, his gopher, his doing different things. I felt very fortunate. And to be in Brahmananda's association, he was just always talking about Prabhupada. And so you felt like if you do a little service for Brahmananda or for Gargamuni, then you were serving Srila Prabhupada. So Brahmananda's health was getting to such an extent that there was no way he could travel back to the United States to redo his visa. And so we collected a lot of doctors' reports, and I went to Mathura and spoke to the 3 medical officers there, the CMOs, showed them the pictures, the file, and I said, we need to have a medical visa for this devotee. He's the first devotee in ISKCON. So then all 3 men said, well, let us go and let's go talk to him, which was very unusual even on that day, how Krishna had arranged for all 3 of them to be in the same office, because they had 3 different offices in Mathura. So they got in a car, and I was in an auto rickshaw, and I called Brahmananda and I said, get in the bed and put your apnea machine on, and they're going to come and see you. And Brahmananda said, yeah, and I'll make some wheezing noises also. He had a very unusual sense of humor, didn't he? It was kind of New Yorky, but at the same time his own style of humor. So we came and we knocked on the door, and the door that was dark inside. And I said, Brahmananda, the chief medical officers are here for your medical visa. We're going to come in. So we came in and turned on the light, and there was this huge body on the bed. When Brahmananda was lying down, you remember he was about 350 pounds at his departure. And all 3 men just looked at him. Their eyes were like they had never seen anything like this. So all 3 of them went and sat down on the couch, and they were saying, Mr. Sharav, can you hear us? And there was this, Brahmananda was making these noises, and the machine was kind of rattling, and he had this big thing over his face. So we helped him sit up, and he said, Mr. Sharav, do you understand why we're here? And he went, yes. And they said, well, we can see that your condition is such that travel is impossible. So right then and there, after we explained that he was first disciple of Srila Prabhupada, and from it. We had some books there. We gave them each a reservoir of pleasure. And they signed off on the medical visa right there on the spot. And then a few months later, he left us, which was really amazing that those three chief medical officers got that mercy from Brahmananda and from Prabhupada. Because otherwise, how would they have gotten a book like that? So on that day when Brahmananda left us, also Krishna and Prabhupada were so present there. Brahmananda had told Gargamuni and me and several others, do not let them take me out of Vrindavan. He had been living in Vrindavan for 15 years, and he did not want to leave Vrindavan. And but somebody had called for an ambulance to take Brahmananda to a hospital, and so these are to Delhi, hospital in Delhi. But by then we had gotten Brahmananda. He had fallen down, and I had called Dharmatma Prabhu and Saranga Thakur. So many of the men came and took about 8 men to lift Brahmananda on his chair, his preaching chair, because we had many programs in his rooms as well. And these 2 little skinny guys came in with a little skinny cot, like you see in the hospitals, and they just looked at Brahmananda, and we said, no, he's not going to go to the hospital. And they were so relieved that they wouldn't have to get him on the hospital cot. And so as the day went by, Brahmananda had apnea, which is a breathing difficulty. So that became a little worse. And so at 3:20, on Vakreshwara Pandit's appearance day, which of course, as we know, is today, Brahmananda just left right on his preaching chair, which is considered to be very auspicious when one leaves in the place where he preaches. And also very significant that Sri Vakreshwara Pandit is one of Lord Chaitanya's very special dancers at the Rath Yatra. And of course we know that Brahmananda was Prabhupada's first dancer at Tompkins Square Park. So we find the significance of his departure on this day very wonderful. We have a few more written glorifications from Brahmananda's god sisters and god brothers. Nartaki Mataji, who is Brahmananda's god sister, she's in Bombay right now getting some eye treatment, but she just wanted to offer her humble obeisances to Brahmananda Prabhu. Also, Cindy Sharaf, who is Brahmananda's sister, she also is very grateful to everyone here for putting on this nice program for her dear brother. Brahmananda made quite an effect on his family. They had grown up in the Jewish religion, but Brahmananda and Gargamuni, after 55 years, although they're not so favorable, but still after hearing Hare Krishna for 55 years, at least they were still keeping in contact. Let's see if somebody, you can say something while I find you.
No, when you're done.
While I find them, you can say something.
Just to carry forward something mentioned by Shrutakirti Prabhu about how dedicated Brahmananda was and how he was like a son. His relationship with Prabhupada was like the most loyal son. And I recall 1977 in this room, Srila Prabhupada was sitting just here where these mats are. We were massaging Prabhupada, Upendra and myself. And just by those doors, Brahmananda and Tamal were standing, talking to Prabhupada. Actually, they may have been a little closer. Of course, this partition was not there. And Brahmananda, in his mood of always wanting to be connected to Prabhupada, he asked Srila Prabhupada, because Prabhupada at that time was very clear that he was leaving, that he was not going to live much longer. So that was very much in our mind. So Brahmananda said to Srila Prabhupada, will we be with you in the spiritual world? And Prabhupada answered, when we go back to Krishna Loka, the residents of Vaikuntha will fly overhead in their flower airplanes, and they will look down and they will say, oh, look at the nice guru and his disciples. So that was reassuring to Brahmananda, of course to all of us at the same time. What a great question. And good questions are glorious, they're auspicious because they're for the benefit of everyone. I find that a very inspiring question. That was Brahmananda's unique relationship, that he could focus and think of that question and encourage Prabhupada to answer like that.
Giriraj Swami has written an offering to Brahmananda Nam Chintamani. Do you want to read it?
I'm opening it. I'm opening it. I have to open it.
Okay, well, he's opening it. The time Anada Ji, who's also one of Brahmananda's dear old god sisters. She lives here in Vrindavan, and she's out of Vrindavan for a little while. Why do we love Brahmananda Prabhu? Because he loved Srila Prabhupada with all his heart and soul. He was humble, kind, learned, faithful, steadfast, and fearless in serving Srila Prabhupada. He was non-political, straightforward, genuine, and had a wonderful Vaishnava smile and laugh. When Brahmananda would laugh, everybody would laugh with him. He was protective of the truth and therefore protective of the Vaishnavas. He was always protecting Srila Prabhupada when he was with him. He was extremely capable but never manifested any form of ambition. This is because he was fully immersed in serving Srila Prabhupada. All his ambitions were fulfilled by his dedication to Srila Prabhupada. This is a sign of the highest intelligence. He did not need to prove himself by writing many books or having many disciples. His pure and simple love for Srila Prabhupada was his obedient service to him. He never complained and he never questioned what Srila Prabhupada would ask of him, and this manifested in his spiritual behavior. Brahmananda Prabhu was someone everyone could trust, and he was a no-nonsense person. The part he played in the production of Srila Prabhupada's 1972 edition of Bhagavad Gita is testimony to his intimate relationship with Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada trusted Brahmananda and truly loved him. His being happy to get up and chant when no one knew it was to become the latest fashion. This eternal chanting and dancing of Lord Chaitanya's movement is also telling of his mature devotional status. He hardly ever rested, always thinking of how to push on Prabhupada's mission. The part he played in the production of the first ever record album in ISKCON, the Happening album, and his preaching in Africa, his and Gargamuni saving Prabhupada from the hospital, those doctors in New York, the list of his services and qualities is endless and inspiring. We are very fortunate to have had Brahmananda Prabhu in our midst. Devotees such as him are always to be served and glorified. At least he has left his brother Gargamuni with us for a while longer before they join up again at Srila Prabhupada's lotus feet. All glories to our generous and most glorious Brahmananda Prabhu, Hare Krishna, Anada Devi Dasi. That was the story of at the hospital when Prabhupada had told Gargamuni and others, no needles, no needles. And they came with a huge long needle to put in Brahmananda's spine, in Prabhupada's spine. So Gargamuni and Brahmananda, they took Prabhupada out of the room in his bed, and Brahmananda had the getaway car, and Gargamuni, he was only 17, you're only 17, 18 at that time, pushing the bed, and the doctor said, you will be the death of that old man. And they were looking at Prabhupada, they were afraid, and Prabhupada was chanting on his bed, sitting like this. Brahmananda used to tell the story, and he just said, keep going forward. They got Brahmananda out of the bed, into the chair, and then he went to the sea, by the home by the sea, right? Long Branch. And he actually recovered because of the nice air, the sea air, and the atmosphere. So now we'll hear from His Holiness Giriraj Swami, from his dear disciple Nam Chintamani Devi Dasi.
Hare Krishna. Thoughts of Brahmananda Prabhu. Any association with Brahmananda Prabhu, whether by Vani or Vapu, enhanced my loving feelings for Srila Prabhupada. There is a verse in Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat that I think describes him perfectly. Quote, Vishnu and the Vaishnavas are equal, but atheists and blasphemers think otherwise. One who worships the lotus feet of Krishna without discriminating is delivered. Brahmananda Prabhu had the firm conviction that the worship and service of Srila Prabhupada was equal to, if not more pleasing than, of the Supreme Lord. And he was surely delivered by Srila Prabhupada's grace. There is a prayer offered to Lord Chaitanya that reflects Brahmananda Prabhu's mood in relation to Srila Prabhupada and the mood for which I aspire. Quote, birth after birth, you are our father, mother, son, and master. May we never forget your lotus feet. O Lord, it does not matter where we take birth, but may we always have loving devotion for your lotus feet. Unquote. Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat, Antya Leela 3:485-487 confirms the efficacy of serving pure devotees and the results one attained from it. Quote, the service of Vaishnavas is superior to the service of Krishna. All scriptures headed by the Srimad Bhagavatam confirm this. There may be a doubt whether the servants of the Supreme Personality of Godhead will attain perfection. Therefore, service to the Vaishnavas is the best means of deliverance. Brahmananda Prabhu, please think kindly upon us and keep us close to your lotus feet, that we may engage in everlasting service to our eternal Lord and Master in the association of all his beloved servants. Giriraj Swami. His Grace Brahmananda Prabhu ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Gaur.
Very short offering from Deva Tahiti, long-time god sister and friend of Brahmananda and Gargamuni. When speaking about Srila Prabhupada, I always say, Brahmananda said, in my daily life, the memory of his grace always fills me with great joy and love. he has become a major part of my spiritual journey when I think of him and his example. Mahadevi used to bring me over to Brahmananda's house, and we would sit for hours listening to him tell us stories about Brahmananda. And then Gargamuni would come in, and we would all start laughing with his jokes and his different memories of Srila Prabhupada. I'm very grateful for those times with Brahmananda. Thank you, dear brother, for your grand association. We will always remember you as Srila Prabhupada's dearest disciple. All glories to your service.
So, in closing, I just wanted everyone to be aware that although we're glorifying Brahmananda, we should also recognize the importance of Gargamuni's service. And that, I remember I came to India in 1975. Gargamuni was a sannyasi then, and he had arranged for 6 Mercedes vans to be brought over from Germany to India. And then he inaugurated and spearheaded the book distribution all over India. Satyanarayan and I, we had one van. There was 5 other parties, 6 parties. We traveled all over India, and we distributed full sets of Prabhupada's books, and we called it the Encyclopedia of Vedic Knowledge. And Gargamuni, he would have his office in Bombay. We would sign up different libraries and businesses and people, and then we would send the contracts to Gargamuni, and he would send out the books and get the payment and everything. So he did that, a fantastic service. And one other thing I want to mention about how expert he was at getting money. He used to go out and make life members. And in those days, there was a special shaving cream that you could get in America that when you put it in your hand, it would warm up and become hot. So he would go to the Indians and say, you should become the life member and I'll do some mystical yoga miracle for you. Oh, really? Yeah, put out your hand. And he'd put the shaving cream on their hand, and then he'd say a mantra, and of course the shaving cream got really hot, so they say, wow. And he said, yeah, I'm empowered by Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, you should become the life member. And so they would become the life member. He made so many life members. So Gargamuni really, the Polaroid camera, I don't even know that one.
Yeah. I had the Polaroid camera, and it was a passport for them to stay in the guest houses all over the world in ISKCON. So I would take their picture, and they would see it coming slowly, and then they thought I had some mantra shakti or something.
Yeah. Nobody had those.
Yeah, they didn't have that in India at that time. So that, yeah. And the U.S. Embassy called the temple in Calcutta. The U.S. Embassy called the temple in Calcutta, and you are issuing passports to America? Because I put the photo in a folder and put the gold stamp of ISKCON on there. And it looked like, there we go, I have my passport, give me visa to go to America. I said, no, that's not a passport. It's a passport to stay in ISKCON temples. So it was very funny that people thought it was a passport to go to America.
So we have one more offering before we take prasadam. This is from Srimati Devi Dasi. She's a long-time member, long-time resident here in Vrindavan and in Mayapur. My repeated Dandavat pranams in the Braj Raj at your lotus feet, Brahmananda Prabhu. Although I very rarely had the good fortune of your association, I feel a very real and lasting bond with you because of your very intense, very practical, and divinely unbreakable love for Srila Prabhupada. From your very powerful yet very human example, I have learned very precious lessons that I would never ever found in the pages of Shastra. You taught me the importance of always remembering that my relationship with Srila Prabhupada is very real and defies all boundaries of space and time. You taught me to always trust Srila Prabhupada and his very powerful and merciful shelter, regardless of how heavy the external energy may be harassing me. You taught me that it's human to make mistakes, but even big ones can never deny us Srila Prabhupada's love and care. If we truly want to love and serve him, you taught me the incredible potency of simply remembering Srila Prabhupada in everything that we do every day. Your example has given me many, many precious gifts. Brahmananda Prabhu, I remain eternally indebted to you for your example in how to be a devotee of Srila Prabhupada. Your indebted servant, Srimati Dasi. Hari Bol. So,
Yeah, in Philadelphia, Rath Yatra, we sat with Prabhupada on the Rath Yatra cart. There's a movie of that. But Prabhupada gave a lecture in the temple, and one yogi came in with about 5 or 6 girls, and he was trying to show off. And he was asking questions to Prabhupada, but they weren't very nice questions. And then he started talking and trying to take over the mood of the aspect of Prabhupada there. And Prabhupada gave a glance to Brahmananda like this. They had a thing together. That means he should go, this yogi. And Brahmananda had an iron grip from wrestling. So he went up to the man and pressed so hard on his shoulder. He pressed so hard on his shoulder, it's time for you to go. And the guy went out of the temple. So that's how Brahman, all it needed was a glance to Brahmananda and he'd know what to do. Prabhupada would go like this. That means we should leave. He was creating a disturbance. As a brother, most brothers don't live together. They fight. But we live together because we're serving Prabhupada. So we were always, especially after Prabhupada left his body, we lived together in Virginia and in Hollywood, Florida, where I started a t-shirt business there that made me come to Vrindavan 23 years ago. I came. So Ramana helped me with that business. He was doing book distribution in El Paso, and he had a car accident. He fell asleep, and his insurance, they tried to fix the car. So I called Brahmananda back to stay with me in Hollywood. we're doing the t-shirt business. So that's all I want to say about Brahmananda.
You wanted to tell the Mauritius story. Do you have another picture?
No. I have videos.
Dharmata, did you want to say something about that? Oh, I want to say something about Dharmata. Dharmata Prabhu was always yeah. Anytime, and Govinda Dasi also would bring Brahmananda, which she has made today, the famous Brahmananda cake, and she would bring it to Brahmananda, and half was supposed to go to Gargamuni, and one half was for Brahmananda, and Gargamuni never got his half. So today we made sure we have an extra big cake, so he'll get his. And Govinda Dasi also was here when Brahmananda was with us, and she would like to say a few things.
For me, it was the most amazing experience, because anytime I would tell Brahmananda something about anything, he would always change. Yes, Prabhupada did like this in this connection. Like whatever you say, he would always bring back to Prabhupada. And that for me was such an amazing experience of his love in action. Even Prabhupada's presence was not there physical, but he always was Prabhupada conscious. Like anytime, like I remember once I got guardian from Prabhupada, and immediately Brahmananda said, Prabhupada said, and when you get the guardian, it means you get in an instruction. Or like, any little details, he would always say, yeah, Prabhupada said, or like Prabhupada did, and always would make connection with Prabhupada. So that was for me the most precious experience. Yes, making cake for him and all, it was very joyful, but hearing from him is the most amazing. I remember the best was on, I think next day after Balaram Hall, Balaram appearance. It was the day when Prabhupada went to America from Calcutta. So I remember the day we met in Balaram Hall, and Brahmananda was speaking on Prabhupada's diary. And every little writing of Prabhupada, Brahmananda examined like what is exactly. There was something about Gamcha, like Prabhupada spent 10 cents or whatever on Gamcha. So Brahmananda, he researched that was the time when Prabhupada needed Gamcha for this reason, and like every writing of Prabhupada, he would research to what it connection. Like Prabhupada would write, he's spending money, but he would make research, is connecting to this and connecting to that. And that was so amazing. I remember we all like went into a completely different world just to be with Prabhupada and with his way of dealing in the life, and every little detail and thought. And it was just like he made for us Prabhupada present. Even me never saw Prabhupada and met him personally, but when he was speaking Prabhupada, we would experience that Prabhupada's presence, personal association with him. And I'm so grateful to him for this, and back at his lotus feet that I can do a little service in this Prabhupada's movement. Hare Krishna.
Dharmatma Prabhu, for many years Dharmatma was serving Brahmananda Prabhu with bringing his medicines and just doing anything that Brahmananda would ask.
So Brahmananda Prabhu was very fond of prasadam, as we know, and sometimes he used to call me to bring him prasadam, especially the Rajbhog. So one day he called me around 11 o'clock that, can you bring some Rajbhog for me? So I said, okay, let me check in the Mahaprasad stall if it is available. So then I went and I saw that a whole plate was available. So then I took that box to his place, Ananda Krishnavan, and then I came back. So next day again I went. So then I asked him, I said that yesterday I gave you a full box of Mahaprasad. You ate all alone or you gave to Gargamuni Prabhu also? So he started smiling and he said, why you want to know that? So like that, one time he asked me to arrange some new dhoti and kurta. So I arranged that from Ganga Prasad, like 4-5 sets of dhoti and kurta. Then he told me that he had a watch. He had a watch. So he told me that, can you repair this from Louis Bazaar? So that I did during the 40th anniversary. So in that way, I had a very a nice relation with him, very loving and jovial, humorous relation with Brahmananda Prabhu. And the last day, I think I got a call from Mahadevi Mataji when he became sick. The day he departed, the day before. So then I went to his place, we arranged the oxygen cylinder, a huge oxygen cylinder. Then His Holiness Gopal Krishna Maharaj sent a doctor from Delhi. And then we came back evening time. The next day again you called me that he fell down at night time and he was lying on the floor. So we all went there with some devotees. We made him sit on the chair, his chair. And then I think the doctor suggested that he has to go to the hospital. So he arranged the ambulance and everything. But then he, from his chair, he just fell down. And then that's the time that he departed. So then, yes, very nice arrangement. The whole night we took Brahmananda Prabhu's body outside on the, with big eyes, and the whole night devoted did kirtan, and then next morning with a bullock cart we came in front of Srila Prabhupada's Samadhi. Then we went to Jamuna. Yes, so many devotees came. And Banabhatta Prabhu was there that time. Gopal Krishna Maharaj came that same night. He came, he wrote a letter to the GBC body. Yes, from Delhi he came here. Because I think Maharaj just came back from Burma. And then from Delhi airport he called me, he said, I heard that Brahmananda Prabhu is not well. So then he said that, okay, I'm sending a doctor from Delhi. So then the doctor came. Although he couldn't do much because it was very serious situation, but he was there, yes. Yeah. And we always invited Brahmananda Prabhu for on special occasion, like Prabhupada's sannyas ceremony, then Prabhupada's incorporation of ISKCON. Whenever he was here, every time he gave classes on those special occasions. Accepting sannyas, departure for USA, arrival in USA. So he gave all those lectures those days. Yes. So all glories to Brahmananda Prabhu. So now we will go to his Samadhi and we will have the Pushpanjali and Arati and offering. And then we will have a feast in the Balaram Hall. Yes, this you can distribute. This you can distribute here because from the deities Mahaprasad is going there. So we'll offer that. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Brahmananda Prabhu. Hare Krishna.